History is not just written in books. It lives in forgotten battles.
The Americans lost this battle. Yet after this day, the British Empire realized one terrifying truth. On June 17, 1775, on a small hill overlooking Boston, inexperienced colonial militia faced off against the most powerful army in the world. The British charged the American fortifications, not once, but twice, and were repelled both times with staggering losses. On the third assault, the colonists, now out of ammunition, were finally forced to retreat. So yes, technically, the British won the ground. But the cost was immense. Over 1,000 of their best troops were killed or wounded. A British general grimly noted that a few more victories like this would surely cost them the war. The Battle of Bunker Hill was a brutal lesson for the British. The American colonists were not just a rebel. They were a determined force, willing to stand and fight to the death for their freedom. And that was a terrifying thought indeed. Imagine this. Boston, 1775. The city is a powder keg ready to explode. Red-coated British soldiers patrol every street corner. A constant, suffocating presence. This isn't their home. It's an occupation. The air is thick with tension. So thick you can almost taste it. Just a short while ago, the shots heard round the world were fired at Lexington and Concord. The news spread like wildfire. And now, fear and anger are battling for control in every colonist's heart. Rumors fly from taverns to town squares. Are the British planning another attack? Will they march out and crush the fledgling rebellion once and for all? For the people of Boston, every day is a test of nerves. They watch the harbor, they watch the troops, and they wait knowing that the fragile peace could shatter at any moment. This is the stage, and the curtain is about to rise on the American Revolution. Ever wonder why the Battle of Bunker Hill was such a big deal in the American Revolution? Well, here's a little secret. The main fight wasn't even on Bunker Hill. Let me explain. Boston in 1775 was a city under siege, and overlooking it were several key hills, including Bunker Hill and the smaller Breed's Hill. The saying was, whoever controlled the hills controlled the city. So, one night, American troops crept out to fortify Bunker Hill under the cover of darkness, but in a mysterious, still debated decision, they ended up digging in on Breed's Hill instead, which was much closer to the British forces. The next morning, the British awoke to a shocking sight. A brand new fort staring right down at them. They knew they had to attack. The bloody battle that followed is what we now call the Battle of Bunker Hill, even though it really happened on Breed's Hill. Crazy, right? It's June 17th, 1775. Imagine this. Thousands of British the most disciplined army in the world, marching uphill in perfect formation. Their bayonets glint in the summer sun. Waiting for them are American colonists, dug in behind a crude fort. The problem, the Americans are desperately low on ammunition. Every shot has to count. This is where one of the most famous orders in military history is given. Do and fire until you see the whites of their eyes. The British launch their first assault. The Americans wait, and then unleash a devastating volley. The Redcoats fall back. They regroup and charge a second time. Again, the American fire is precise and deadly, and the British are repulsed. But on the third assault, the inevitable happens. The Americans run out of ammunition. The British storm the fort, and the fight devolves into brutal, hand-to-hand combat amidst smoke and chaos. Ever heard of a victory that felt more like a defeat? That's exactly what happened at the Battle of Bunker Hill. On paper, the British won. They took the hill, which was their objective. But when you look at the numbers, the story completely changes. The British suffered over 1,000 casualties, a staggering number for that era. A huge portion of their officer corps was wiped out on that grassy slope. Meanwhile, the American colonists, who were just a ragtag militia, proved something crucial that day. They proved they could stand up and fight toe-to-toe with the most powerful army in the world. As one British general famously said, a few more victories like that would have surely spelled the end of British dominion in America. It was a victory that had never felt so much like defeat. Have you ever heard of the Battle of Bunker Hill? It's often overshadowed, but this one clash absolutely changed the course of the American Revolution. Before this, many colonists were terrified of the British Army, the most powerful force in the world. But at Bunker Hill, These untrained militiamen stood their ground against seasoned redcoats. Even though they technically lost, the Americans inflicted such heavy casualties that it sent a shockwave through both sides. For the colonists, it was a massive confidence boost. It proved they could fight and win. Suddenly, the idea of independence wasn't just a dream. It felt achievable. For the British, it was a brutal wake-up call. They realized this wasn't going to be a quick, easy conflict. This was going to be a long, bloody, and expensive war. And a fun fact, just 2 weeks later, George Washington arrived to take command, inheriting an army that now believed in itself. Hey, history buffs, get ready for a shocker. Everything you thought you knew about the Battle of Bunker Hill might be wrong. Let's bust some myths. First off, the battle wasn't really fought on Bunker Hill. Crazy, right? Most of the intense fighting actually happened on a nearby hill called Breed's Hill. The American colonists were supposed to fortify Bunker Hill, but they ended up on Breed's Hill instead, which was closer to the British. Second, forget the image of disciplined armies. Most of the American fighters weren't soldiers. They were farmers, mechanics, and everyday folks who picked up a musket to defend their homes. They were a citizen militia, not a professional army. Finally, the British won, but at a huge cost. Their arrogance led them to make a frontal assault up the hill. They lost over 1,000 men, which was a massive blow. So while they took the ground, the Americans proved they could stand up to the mightiest army in the world. Hey, did you know that one of the most famous battles of the American Revolution was uneven fought on the hill it is named after? That's right. The Battle of Bunker Hill mostly happened on nearby Breed's Hill. The British won, but it was a victory that felt a lot like a defeat. They lost over 1,000 soldiers, including a huge number of their officers. The American colonists, with far fewer casualties, proved they could stand up to the most powerful army in the world. The Battle of Bunker Hill was more than a fight for a piece of high ground. It was the moment America realized the empire could bleed. This was only the beginning of the American Revolution, and there are so many more incredible stories to tell. If you want to learn what happened next, make sure you're subscribed. Thanks for watching.
Every story leaves a trace. Every battle leaves a scar.